Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of what, Rachel?
Nobody's listening.
Correct. Although we do have at least one listener
Yes.
who actually commented on our Andor stuff. So
Hey.
shout out to our listener out there.
Yep.
Um,
You're the real one.
yes, we're back. We got a couple episodes of the Bad Batch that we're going to discuss tonight, episodes 3 and 4, season 2. But before we get into that, there was a big thing. I know you're not a big football fan, Rachel. I know you don't sit back on Sundays with the pigskin and watch the games and NFL Red Zone and all of that.
No.
However, I think it actually was on Monday Night Football. They decided, and Disney does this quite often because they own ESPN. They did this with, I think, The Force Awakens and maybe Last Jedi, where they show the trailer for the new Star Wars thing at like halftime when millions and millions of eyeballs are going to be on this. So they dropped a new official trailer for Mandalorian Season 3. You just watched it about 30 seconds before we started this.
Right before you hung up on me, yes.
What are your thoughts? Your reactions?
Honestly, the music, the aesthetics, all of that stuff, like immediate sort of like serotonin rush because I love it so much. Seeing a bunch of Mandalorians and jetpacks is always very exciting. I'm really looking forward to season 3, and there were a couple of moments here that I was excited by, but I don't know, maybe my hopes were a little too high for the trailer. I don't know. Am I crazy? Was this one a little? Oh, okay.
I think this trailer kind of sucks, honestly.
Okay. That makes me feel a little better. I felt a little bit like it was almost pandering to the daddy of the internet a little more than I wanted. Like, I'm very invested in that relationship, but I don't know.
20 seconds of it is just them in their ship and flying around in hyperspace. There's nothing. There's no there. I think there's two ways that you can look at this. Number one, I think it is like they're deliberately holding stuff back. Like you don't see Bo-Katan in this. You don't see Moff Gideon in this. You don't see really any of that stuff. They're holding stuff back. And two, what is the audience for this trailer? They debuted this trailer during Monday Night Football, right? So that's not designed for like a hardcore maybe Star Wars crowd. It's more of just a casual crowd, and I think this was more of a reminder that, hey, by the way, Mando season 3 starts March 1st to the millions of people watching this football game who are just casual fans like my mom or something like that. And if they're interested, they'll do maybe a more deep dive. I assume we will get a much bigger trailer the closer we get to March 1st.
Yeah, on one hand, I'm already going to watch it. So it's not like I need them to sell the plot to me. I'm very much already like it's a done deal. And it was fun to see some of the new characters, but yeah, I don't feel like I really know anything about this season, or that there was like a scene that I was like, oh my God, I need to see the context for that in this.
Yeah. And I'm curious how casual fans who, like my mom, right? She watches The Mandalorian, but she didn't watch the Book of Boba Fett. She's not that kind of Star Wars fan where she's just going to watch Star Wars all the time like we do. Are people going to be completely confused from what happened at the end of season 2 to suddenly Mando's flying around with Grogu?
Right.
Like, what's happening here?
I didn't even think about that.
It's like you got two full episodes of the Book of Boba Fett were just the bridge, basically episode season 2.5 of Mandalorian, and I'm wondering how many people are going to be confused when they first see this season and they're like, "What's going on?" and have to go back and have someone tell them, "You got to watch Book of Boba Fett."
Exactly. See, we talked about this a lot when we've been talking about the Marvel stuff and how they're making sure that everything is now required watching and reading and absorbing, and they are doing it. I didn't think about it at the time, but that's exactly what they're doing. They're making people watch Book of Boba Fett because they're invested in Mandalorian. So, like, say people skipped it the first time, now they're gonna have to go back and they're gonna get those eyeballs. Like,
Yep.
That is sinister. That is some empire-like thinking, Kevin Feige.
Now there's a couple things in this trailer that really concern me.
Okay.
really concern me. One of them takes place around the 30-31 second mark. It's just a shot of Mando walking with Grogu floating by his side. Now, we just got off of Andor, and how amazing a show looked without the use of the volume. And I feel like a couple shots in this trailer
Oh,
are so obviously volumey, CG, green screen, whatever it is they used, that it completely
yikes.
took me out of it. I was like, that's not a real place. Whoever's in that Mando costume is
Ooh.
not on a real location, and it was very jarring to me. Did you notice anything of that when you watched this? How it
I
kind of felt like,
didn't. I didn't. I was kind of watching it like, in a screen within a screen, but I scanned to 31 and I see what you're talking. He's like in a marketplace before we see the lizard monkey, and
yeah, and
it's
it looks very weird when it's in motion. It's just kind of like, oh, that doesn't quite look right, and I'm concerned
ooh,
now that that
yeah.
Andor was so it looks so good. Like Andor was spectacular. The sets and everything is
Yeah.
so glaring now when we see something obviously on the volume that it just takes you out of it.
God, technology moves quickly. I know that that's a thing, but this seems like it happened fast, where we look at old CGI and it's laughable now, but at the time we were like, that's amazing. Like I recently rewatched Lord of the Rings, and I remember just being marveling at what's his name? I want to say Gimli. That's not right. My precious. And when I watched it again, I was like, oh no, I see all the seams
Oh, Andy
now.
Serkis as
Andy Serkis,
Gollum.
Gollum, thank you. And it, like, when we watched the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, we were like awestruck by this
Yeah.
technology. And already our eyes are like, no, nope, there it is. I see it. I see the inauthenticity. I see it.
Well, you know what I
Hopefully these are unfinished. Maybe this is unfinished.
maybe. I'm honestly, I think, the more I think about this off the fly here as we're discussing this, I think this is a what's the word I'm looking for? Like this is like the ramification of Marvel, where almost everything in a Marvel movie is just CG. We're so
Mhm.
conditioned to CG backgrounds, CG characters. Everything looks like, you look at Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It doesn't look like they shot any of that really on real locations. Maybe one New York street or something, and it just looks like a video game almost. And I think coming off all the Marvel stuff, rolling into Mando season 1, season 2, like, oh wow, man, this is kind of cool. This volume thing, it really, the whole concept of what they can do with it is really amazing when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
But then it's like Tony Gilroy's like, we're going to go back to nuts and bolts filmmaking here with actual building sets. We're going to employ people to build sets with their hands, not in a computer. And we're going to have these people walk. They're known as actors, like good actors, and they're gonna walk around in this space. They're going to interact with things that are in cupboards and stuff, and things of that nature. It's right there, and then you
Mm,
realize, wow, that's why we love movie making, right?
yeah.
Of course we love CG and the cool monsters and things like that, but like Jurassic Park was cool because it was real locations and the CG dinosaurs
Yeah.
running around, right? It wasn't like a whole fully CG world. Like you watch some of the new Jurassic World movies, and it's like so much of that you can tell is just created CG, the backgrounds and things of that. It just doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, I mean, there's also something stylistically happening. I'm looking at 1 minute, 1 second, where we're seeing,
Yes, with a Camino cloner guy.
and we just saw Camino, or not, we just saw Coruscant. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
why doesn't this look as good as that? What
Yeah.
is it unfinished? That's what makes me hope it's just unfinished, because it's not like everything in Andor was actual physical sets, but everything felt like it was, even when it wasn't.
Yes. They were able to
Mm.
seamlessly blend the practical real world sets with backgrounds and things of that nature. Whereas the volume is the volume.
Yeah.
Everything is pretty much CG behind you, and you're just walking around, which again is great technology. And there's a lot of shots in this trailer that do look cool,
Mhm.
but I can't lie, I'm a little concerned by how some of this stuff looks. But that being said, I think the big moment of this trailer for me, and I think the real, like the one thing is at 109, 108, 109 ish. That is a sequence Order 66. So it's almost like this full
Oh.
trailer is like, okay, this is for the normies out there who are just casual Mando fans and want to know that it's out. But here's the thing for you diehards: Grogu's origin, who got him out of the temple. It clearly looks like they're
Oh.
gonna flash back to this. We're gonna see more of that because we saw it briefly in season 2 when Grogu started to
Mhm.
remember who's behind that door, who's sort of coming in and trying to get Grogu, and who who saves him.
Mhm.
That's a big mystery. Where did Grogu come from, and who got him out of that temple? We might get some answers.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm just excited to see certain characters showing up. Like, it was fun to see the armorer again. It was fun to see the Rebel Squadron guy, Captain Carson Teva. I'm looking at IMDb. I did not know that off the top of my head.
Yep.
Like, I love that actor, and I thought he was a really fun sort of funny character, and I was worried that he was going to disappear when the spinoff that I thought he was going to be a part of evaporated over someone being a racist piece of shit. So seeing him show up was kind of a fun moment. I don't know. I like the world building that's happening, and I've always really loved all the stuff about Mandalore, like in Clone Wars, those arcs. So him going back to Mandalore is interesting to me. I think potentially, hopefully, likely, it's going to be a good time. But I think it's also really, really hard to be the first live action after Andor, which was
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah, and they were making this before Andor, I think. Like, this was all sort of before Andor sort of came out. So maybe we cut them a little bit of slack when we're watching it, but it's going to be
Yeah.
noticeable. Sidebar, real quick, since you brought it up. Do we ever see the character of Cara Dune again?
Not unless she's recast.
Do you think they'll recast her and bring her back?
I think the show has moved in a direction, like, they were already getting ready to spin her off. So what, they don't think there's a necessity to bring her back.
Okay.
What about you?
I think eventually she comes back.
You mean like in the expanse of time, like in some other iteration of another show, or within the
I
Mandalorian?
I think eventually Gina Carano will be back in that role.
Jesus, I hope not.
I absolutely think it will happen. I'm not saying I want it to happen. I'm just saying I think it will happen. You know what, the old adage, time heals all wounds. And I
Mm,
think they're going to get so far
mm.
away from all that controversy. And at least to my knowledge, I mean, maybe you know better, but I haven't heard anything recently from her being like she was when she was on Mandalorian.
I
This
mean,
might be her
she's off
purgatory.
making box office bombs.
Yeah, but I mean, she's not sort of, COVID is quote unquote over now. Society's kind of past all of it. And that was what really got her into a lot of trouble initially. I feel like she's kind of like in Star Wars purgatory. And then eventually, whether it's a year down the road, 2, 3, whenever all the Thrawn stuff and they need to assemble all the Avengers together, she'll throw out some stupid statement saying she apologizes for whatever, everything will be forgiven, and they'll just throw her back into the role. That's what I think will happen.
Ooh,
I wish they would just recast her, honestly, to
2 days
avoid.
ago,
Okay. What happened
giant
to her?
freaking robot reports Gina Carano Cara Dune role up for recasting. There's your
Oh,
answer. There is your
okay.
answer.
Okay, well, maybe. I still like that character. I hope that they recast her, and I hope they bring that character back.
I like the character as well. She is not a great actor. She was never a great actor. I found her charming, so I was willing to kind of overlook the clunkiness of the performance. But I feel like in a post Andor world, maybe no matter what, we get somebody who can actually act.
Yeah, it's just so weird because like it would be so strange to just never see that character again. Because the last time we see her was at the end of Mando season 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Star Wars, they love their characters. They're not going to want to drop a character like that. It was such a fan favorite character too. A lot of people love that
Mm-hmm.
character. They'll bring that character back somehow, whether it's with Gina Carano or recasting somebody else. I don't know who I'd like to see in that role.
I mean, it has to be somebody who has like a lot of, like someone who is physically very, buff and
Yeah.
muscular. I mean, that's one of the things I loved about like seeing some body diversity. Like, everybody is normally just like,
Do
a
you think they'd
skinny little
like?
Twi'lek or Ray. You know what I mean? So seeing someone with some like body diversity and like a strong physically athletic body was I feel like important to see on screen. So
Yeah.
hopefully they'll find someone who has a similar build.
Didn't they cast Sasha Banks in Mandalorian? Wasn't she one of Bo-Katan's Mandalorian? She's a wrestler, so maybe they'll just go, with another wrestler,
Yeah, why
actor or
not?
something. Yeah.
Yeah, there's got to be somebody out there's got to act. Listen, we've got Dave Batista. Like people can act in that arena. Why not?
Dwayne
Sure.
Johnson, The Rock, you got all kinds of people.
Yeah,
John
John
Cena. Yeah.
Cena.
Okay, so with
Okay.
that, let's get into some Bad Batch episodes 3 and 4. I'll turn it over to you for episode 3, which what is it? The Solitary
The
Clone.
Solitary Clone. Now, this one I'm excited to talk to you about because we just were going through our list of like who we like the best, and wouldn't you know it, it's a Crosshair
Yes,
episode.
love Crosshair, love him.
As soon as he showed up, I was like, Matt is in heaven right now.
Oh yes, oh yes.
All right, so this episode opens on a planet I was not previously familiar with, Desix, where the Empire, fresh off of dissolving the Republic, is doing essentially a hostile takeover of all the systems, whether they were in the Republic or not. Naturally, the local governor is not down with the colonization. Her name is Tawny Ames, and she basically takes the Imperial officer captive, backed up by her army of formerly Imperial drones, which I thought was interesting because we get a little flippity flip here of some of the action.
Clankers.
You know what? I know that they're goofy, but there's something about them that I love. Like I hear the Roger Roger, I'm like, yes. I love the tactical one. His voice is my favorite. It's weird ASMR for me, so I was very excited to see them in this episode.
Now, like when I saw the Phantom Menace, I hated these things.
Of course,
I was like, this sucks. Like, why would George Lucas make them sound so stupid? Now, like 20 years later, it brings out the inner child in me. I'm like, oh, this is fine. I'm okay with it now. I get it.
Their stupid little back and forths and ironic jokes. Like now, I'm like,
they like high five each other when they do something good.
So stupid, but I love it now. I guess enough time passes and you just
time heals all wounds, Rachel.
Yeah, or Stockholm's you into liking Roger Roger.
Yes.
But anyway,
Roger.
Yes. So then we cut to Coruscant and catch up with your favorite Bad Batch character turned precious, Crosshair, who is living a very pretty sad and solitary existence. He's rejected by the other regs, and they're very you can't sit with us, Mean Girl style.
I love that. That's my favorite scene in this entire episode. I love when he sits down and they're essentially his brothers. Right? Yeah. They're his brother, and they just look at him, they get up, and they walk away. And there's so much behind that. And you just kind of see it in the animation, like when Crosshair kind of looks down. It's very subtle, but you just he's hurting. He lost his real brothers, right? The Hunter and all of them. They basically he basically said, no, I'm walking away from you guys. So he lost them. He's lost all of his clone brothers who didn't really like him in the first place. Now they hate him even more because they probably blame him for everything that went down on Kamino, not being able to finish the job. And even the Imperial's like, you're not ready for command yet, buddy. I'm not going to let you lead. So he's just kind of on the outs, and I felt for my boy. I felt for Crosshair. I'd be his friend. I'd come sit next to him.
Oh my God, Matthew. Yeah, I think especially when we get to the end of the episode and we kind of figure out where he's at with all this, I think that this scene is very interesting and something that I'm really enjoying about this season, and this is true of the next episode too, is that we're getting deep dives on these characters in a way the Bad Batch used to be a character. Now they are very much individuals, and I'm excited to maybe I'll even start to care about Hunter. We'll see. Slow down. But
whoa! Hold your roll there, Captain Milquetoast. I don't know.
I know she's the worst. Even he makes a mullet look boring. Okay, so yeah, he's rejected by the regs, sitting alone, and he's this is his life now until he gets called in by Vice Admiral Rampart, fresh off a murder, who calls him in to do a mission, but not to lead a mission. He's not quite ready for that anymore. We also find out that after the events of the last season, he spent 32 days abandoned in the ruins of Camino,
That's
his
crazy.
home world.
Give me that spin-off show, Dave. I want the 32 days of Crosshair on the ruined Camino, spearfishing, surviving, pissing into something to drink the water. Funneling it. I want that show. Just give me Crosshair by himself on Camino for
I
32 days.
mean, think about it. He spent 32 days in the in the place where the genocide of his people took place, like the ruins
Yeah.
of his entire species, the last hope for their continuation. And he was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go hang out with the Empire and do their bidding some more.
Yeah.
That is a very interesting bit of psychology right there.
That's my boy.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. All right. So, even though he's not leading the mission, there is a familiar commander in charge, and that, of course, is Commander Cody, who I think we last saw turning on Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I love Commander Cody. It's not his fault.
You freaking would.
I love me. It's not his fault that he turned on Obi-Wan Kenobi. He was a good dude all the way up to that. It's not his fault he's got that inhibitor chip. I don't hold that against him.
Yeah, I mean, this is another thing that's really interesting. Yes, he has the inhibitor chip. He has a scar on his head, and I don't remember. It's been so long since I saw those episodes of the Clone Wars. Are we meant to believe he's removed that chip?
I don't think so. I don't think he has at this point in the timeline, but he might have at the end of this episode.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is what I'm saying. I think this is really interesting, is that he kind of floats this idea by Crosshair where he's like, yeah, some of the other clones have gone rogue. So presumably, even with inhibitor chips, like the morality that is also like probably a part of the DNA when they were developing or constructing them, is like making them have moral quandaries about what the Empire is doing.
Yeah. And I like the idea that, and now that you've mentioned it, he might have removed it before this episode, but he's still kind of like on the side of the Empire. Like, I'm a soldier, I'm doing my thing here, but sort of having second thoughts. I also kind of like the idea that, and this was explored a bit in the Clone Wars, where the clones have the inhibitor chip, but they're like, this is wrong. And it's like destroying them, but they can't stop themselves from doing it, because that's what they're, instructed to do, essentially. And I like that kind of idea as well. We've not seen the end of Cody.
I don't think so either. I mean, for one thing, he's a character that we all know, right? But also, I feel like he is a very interesting counterpoint to Crosshair, who does have his inhibitor chip removed and is still making these choices of his own free will. And I like that this show is beginning to really explore how free will interacts with these clones. Like, we saw a little bit of it in the Clone Wars. Like, I remember there was this one arc where they were like obviously following a Jedi who did not know what he was doing and was like basically committing war crimes. And they were like having trouble with this idea of like good soldiers follow orders versus like actually doing the right thing. So that we're going back to this and really digging into it within the framework of the Bad Batch is very cool to me. But anyway, so Crosshair is not having any of it, and Cody's like, yeah, good soldiers follow orders. Party line. The mission, of course, is totally gross. They're pretending to be on a diplomatic mission to Desix, but it's just a good old-fashioned assassination.
Yep. And I love that. I love the Imperials basically tell Crosshair, like, you're just going to do whatever you need to do to say, because the Imperial who shows up there, I don't remember his name, but the Imperial who shows up on that planet, this is another thing I like. He's incompetent. He's scared. He doesn't really know what he's doing. He's trying to be like, I got the power of the Empire behind me, but he gets taken down immediately. Like, he's nothing to these individuals. So that's another great thing where the Empire, the show, all of these shows, especially Andor and Clone Wars and Bad Batch, really show that the Empire is not necessarily a monolithic, we are all, super alpha males, confident, we're just going to take over everything. It's like, no, there's a lot of people in the Empire that are just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm incompetent at what I'm doing. I
He
screw
was,
things up all the time. And that was this guy.
Yeah, it was like Big Gorman in the dropship energy.
Who's firing? God damn it.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. So, okay, fortunately for Tawny, she's no dummy. She knows she's got the Empire's number. So when they show up, she's like, this is not a diplomatic mission. And she has her Imperial droids left over from the Clone Wars. Go ahead and shoot that ship down. But of course, the clones, some of them survive, including Cody and Crosshair. We get this kind of, it's so interesting because like the rest of this is essentially them battling with these droids and making their way inside this stronghold. And it's so familiar. All the sounds are familiar, the players are familiar, the tactics are familiar, except for this time we're rooting for the droids.
I wasn't.
I know you weren't. I was.
What I love about this is this whole episode shows what kind of a badass and skill level Crosshair is at his job. Like when this guy is focused, he could be the most dangerous person in the galaxy. I mean, he's taken out tanks by perfect shots right down like the barrel of the tank. I don't know what you call the tank gun, whatever that is. He's like throwing little mirrors up on walls and bouncing laser shots off things. I'm just like, this guy is a bona fide badass. Like he is amazing at what he does.
Yeah, those like little puck mirror trick shots were so cool. Like I never, and like he's fighting the like super, I don't know what they're called, but the super acrobatic, like spidery gross droids, and he's just taking them out like that was cool, man. And I think that we needed to see that because it really solidifies that he when eventually, I don't think he's having a character turn. I think he is entrenching. When they face off again, I don't know that he'll be as, I don't know. I think he might be more of a threat next time they meet up.
I think he'll be more of a threat. This episode has turned me. I think he is turning back to them at some point in time. I do.
Well, I mean,
I 100% do.
Very lonely.
I don't necessarily think it's the loneliness of it. I think it's Cody's words and some of the stuff that just how this episode. Now, there's a moment in here where he's very cold-blooded.
Let's talk about that. Sure. So eventually they do make their way to where she is, and she comes out. Cody negotiates with her. They have conversations about like bloodshed in the war, like making excellent points. Cody is, and she lets down her. He is, yes, fine. He's a good dude. I just,
if only he had good aim when he shot at Obi-Wan. I mean, but
he would have saved us that terrible spinoff.
Yes, it would have saved us that show. Fuck you, Cody. I hate you, Cody.
We're on a real roller coaster.
Can't Crosshair shoot Cody. That's what I want.
Wow. So of course that Weasley Gorman is like, once he's free, instead of, continuing negotiations and like peacefully taking over his role as governor, he's like, kill, murder, death, kill. And,
how dare she put her hands on my throat? Kill.
He's so gross. He is to me the quintessential Imperial. But anyway, well, Cody is sitting there kind of dealing with the quandary of like which takes priority, like my soul, my morality, or good soldiers follow orders. Yeah, Crosshair doesn't have that problem. He takes her out with the quickness. So like if you thought the last ending was dark, hold my beer because this thing is grim.
And I like that character too. And the interesting way that this is kind of, for lack of a better term, shot is it's entirely focused on Cody and his internal struggle. You don't even see Crosshair. You kind of forget about Crosshair, and all of a sudden, doom! And it's like she drops, and Crosshair just turns and walks away. I don't even know if there's a conversation. I don't even think they say anything to each other, do they? I think he just turns and walks away.
Yeah. I think Cody is shocked. I think that is a clarifying moment. It crystallized everything for Cody. I can't remember if he was a part of the group that was on in that episode I was talking about, but like I yeah, this changed everything for him, I think, in this moment. And they have this really interesting conversation once they get back to Coruscant, where Cody basically says, like, the thing that separates us from the droids is that we are able to make decisions and we have to live with those decisions. And Crosshair doesn't say anything.
Don't. No.
Yeah.
He's hardened for now. But I feel like there's a softness beginning. I think it's beginning.
So.
I think that what's going to end up happening is he's going to encounter more and more of this, right? And they even show what's really great and might have flown past everybody's radar in this episode is at the end when the clones are kind of like leaving that planet and they're Cody's watching them be replaced by like the first gen stormtroopers that are coming in, and they even mention at that opening scene where the two clones are having a conversation before Crosshair sits down that I forget what they call it. It's called like the defense, recruitment act or something like that is trying to be passed, and they're like, "Man, I hope it doesn't. That's bad for us," sort of thing. And you see,
typical kids show stuff.
It's been passed. It's been passed. But I definitely think that as we see more and more of Crosshair dealing with all of this stuff as the series goes on, I think he's going to slowly begin to melt. He's going to start to realize, because remember, he doesn't have his inhibitor chip anymore.
Right.
And I think that Cody's words like, hey, we have to live with the decisions we make. You have to live with the fact that you just killed this lady, and I think we'll start to see him what I predict now. If I was a storyteller, I think that Crosshair is going to bite it. I think he's going to die to protect his brothers. I think that's how that arc.
I mean, in this show, I think it's absolutely possible because this thing. I mean, this to me, this was less true in the last season, or maybe it was, and I just wasn't watching it with the same kind of eye. But I mean, we're essentially watching a children's show about the aftermath of multiple genocides and and through the perspective in this case of someone who that genocide was perpetrated against. He's not stupid. He can see what's happening, and yet here he is. And I think there is, like, maybe you're right. Maybe we are going to see him changing over the course of the story. But right now, what we're seeing is something that is always sort of like a strange thing about human nature and an infuriating thing about human nature in the way that oftentimes like this internalized like self sort of like, I mean, like he's been a second class citizen, and like maybe some of that is internalized and he's aligning himself to like a power source, but like that is no form of protection when they see you as less than human. And I think that's like incredibly heady stuff for this children's show, but I do think it's here, which is so interesting to me.
Yeah, it's cool. And Dave Filoni does this greatly, and all of his animated stuff, he's able to balance like, okay, there's stuff for kids in here. Kids are going to find this entertaining and enjoyable. Yeah, Roger. But there's also stuff for as those kids get older. Like I always say that his shows age with his audience. Like that first season is generally more kidified, although I would say this is less kidified than his other shows. But as these kids get to be 12 and 13 and 14 and we're on season 4, 5, 6, you're like, now I understand how these characters change and why their motivations are the way they are. Before, I just loved the lightsabers and I loved the lasers bouncing back and forth, but now I get it. And that's what he's best at.
Yeah. Now kids are like, oh, this is so interesting. This is a quandary as they turn from protectors and keepers of the peace to colonizers and conquerors. Like that. Yeah. These are some very, very high level themes that are happening. And I don't know. I was worried we wouldn't have a lot to talk about with Bad Batch, but I was wrong.
Yeah, I love this episode. This is obviously my favorite episode so far.
Yeah, agree.
And not just because it was just about Crosshair, but just I mean, even the action in this was so dope. It was just so good. I'm like, oh, this is badass. Now, don't know if I'll feel the same way about the next episode, but we'll turn this over to you.
I mean, prepare for tonal whiplash. Because we are back with our like the I would argue the goofier half
Yes.
of our Bad Batch crew.
I love
Echo
Wrecker.
and I did not at first. I have warmed to Wrecker. Wrecker was my least favorite for like 60% of the first season, but I have warmed to him.
Then you heard Hunter talk
I
and
mean,
Hunter's
I,
values and how he views the world.
Agreed.
Wrecker's Michelangelo. He just wants to have fun.
Yeah, he's like a family friendly Hudson a little bit, yeah. So okay, so Echo and Hunter are off on a mission, and so Sid enlists Omega, Wrecker, and Tech on another mission. This time being personal security, something that Tech is not especially flattered by, as it does not. It doesn't at first seem like it's going to be a fit for his particular skill set. She needs protection during the essentially pod race.
Yep.
I'll be honest, as soon as I saw the title of this episode, I went, oh no.
Yeah.
Because racing in Star Wars rarely is a good time.
Now, it's interesting. I'll bring up my fiance. She watched the first 2 episodes of Bad Batch, and her main problem with it is that she's like, this just feels too for kids for me.
Mhm.
Like, it's just too kid friendly.
Yeah.
She liked the last season, which was less that.
Mhm.
She liked Rebels and all of that stuff, but I don't think she'd like this episode.
Yeah, I think this episode is better than I thought it was going to be, but it's hard. It's a hard turn from the last episode, which we were like going down a much darker, more adult path. So Sid has this droid driver who she thinks is a ringer, and so she makes a big bet. But of course, it gets sabotaged because she's betting against a friend turned, let's say, rival in the form of Malegi, voiced by national treasure Ernie Hudson.
Yeah.
So Teo is the name of the driver, and he is, let's just say, he's a bit of a douche. He's voiced by Ben Schwartz, who is an actor I enjoy very much. different take on a droid than I think we've seen before. He and Tech kind of form a rivalry because Teo is very arrogant and like he's like stupid human, but Tech has ideas about like maybe the best strategy for this race. And wouldn't you know it, he ends up behind the wheel of the pod. And spoiler alert, because he basically they have to win this bet, or Sid is going to be taken captive by Malegi for whatever reason we don't know. Spoiler alert, he wins using his tech superpowers, and not only are they able to take Sid, but Malegi is impressed with their loyalty and offers him a warning that Sid is not as loyal and to watch out.
Didn't like this one.
Yeah, I kind of rushed through this synopsis.
There's not a lot to talk about with this one.
Notice I was not paused at any point, so I just kept moving faster.
This is the first episode of the Bad Batch that I can actively like. I really just didn't like it. Even all the episodes in season 1, there were episodes I liked, more than others, but there was no episode in season 1 where I was like, I could have lived without seeing that. And this is one of those. This is that episode for me. I watched these back to back, and that might have been my problem.
Rough. That. Yeah, I had a little separation.
Yeah, that might have been the problem. I was so into like episode 3. I'm like, this is great. This is exactly what I want. And maybe I'm just in that Andor phase still, where I'm like, I want adult Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like you said, whiplash to this. I'm like, this is just goofy pod racing thing. I'm just like, did this add much of anything to the overall? This felt like a filler episode.
This is very much a standalone. Like, I feel like this is when you could actually, like, if someone was curious about it, you'd be like, okay, so let's watch these two. This is what you get. Like, these are the two bookends of the vibe of this. If you like this or you like this, they're both present. I do think there is some stuff here that I did find interesting, though. Like, I actually really love Tech. He's probably my
Yeah.
favorite. So, getting to see a deep dive on Tech was actually kind of fun for me. And I think there is some interesting, very subtle sort of character things that happened in this that I thought were interesting. Particularly, it's actually something that happens at the very end. And it's very subtle. It's when he wins the race and the crowd cheers for him.
Oh, and he sort of takes it all in.
Yeah, it's totally unexpected, and you can see even super flat affect Tech is moved by it. And I think it's a combination of just like being seen as an individual, because he's so like, this is true of Crosshair too, and what makes that first scene so sad is like they are pack animals, like they are so, all of the clones are brothers, but there is a special bond in the Bad Batch that they are so linked to one another that, like, to be seen as an individual and receive praise as the outsider of the outsiders is, I think, interesting, because especially in the larger idea that this season is really kind of beginning to dig in and tell us more about these characters as individuals. And I think that having a moment like that of individuality and recognition in that way from outside sources can shape someone. It can begin to move things. And so I'm interested to see maybe how this impacts him going forward.
Yeah, I can see that. I like that they sort of intentionally they give the reason, like Hunter and who's the other guy? We're just kind of off on some stupid quest that's ridiculous and like unnecessary, just to get them all away from each other for a little bit, so you can have these episodes where you focus on them a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised if the next episode is what Hunter's off doing.
We're gonna see like whatever with Echo and Hunter are off on doing.
Yeah, doing that kind of stuff. But I'm hoping that we're going to get back to the real stuff eventually. I'm just yearning for that when we're like, okay, let's get back to the real nitty gritty here. Give me some sadness. I want somebody to die in this. Like I want one of the crew to die. And I want to see how they would react to that. What happens with all of them. I have this really, sinking suspicion that it'll be Crosshair that bites it, but the main crew won't die. They'll just keep going on and on. But they aren't in the subsequent Star Wars stuff. So it's like one of those things where Star Wars does write itself into a little bit of a corner in some ways, where you're just kind of like, these people have to, like, what Filoni did with Rebels. He's like, this is why these people weren't around. Right. In the original trilogy. Right. Space whales, the unknown regions, space whales. That's why they weren't there, sort of thing. And they have to stay back to protect whatever. But I don't know if you can get away with that with these guys. I mean, it's harder to explain why they weren't involved in a lot of stuff. And maybe the ultimate, solution to all this is, hey, they just age faster. These clones just age super fast, and then they drop dead. But did they say in last season? Do they age normally? The Bad Batch?
I don't know if they age normally. I mean, they're quite a bit older than. I mean, physically older than Omega, who is like Boba, right? So
so they must have to age fast.
Yeah,
the same as all the others.
Yeah, that would explain it.
They may just die off of old age.
It's only medium sad instead of ultimate sad.
Yeah. But yeah, this episode just wasn't for me. I was just kind of like, this is designed for kids. A palate cleanser from the darkness that I gave you the week before.
And the week before with the pushing off of the cliff of the clone.
Yeah, so like, don't worry, parents. Here's a little goofy pod race to get the kids all excited again, because I do think that there is a section of viewers of this show who are young, right? They are 10, 11. They might have watched the last episode. There were a couple cool action sequences, but I think that was the longest Bad Batch episode so far. And it was a lot of heavy talk, philosophical discussions about things and just people sitting around and talking. And that doesn't get the 10-year-old kids excited, but pod racing does.
See, I feel like, I don't know, maybe because I grew up, I'm old, I don't know, but like, I remember I watched a lot of boring shit that I loved as a kid, like the Black Hole, you know what I mean? That's like true. A lot of philosophizing and a few robots, and the thing I remember is the robots.
That's true.
You go back and watch it, you're like, this is a kids movie. So I don't know. I don't know. I will say the other thing we didn't talk about is like the threat. I mean, I think it's inevitable. Sid is definitely going to betray them, but like maybe it'll be kind of like a light betray. I don't know, but I think it's an interesting idea to think about. Omega has never really been like fully betrayed, right? So she trusts everybody. But
Yeah.
but the Bad Batch they went through Order 66 and then betrayal of Crosshair. So that's got to be triggering AF. I'm interested to see if that is something that is even explored, but it stood out to me as something like I would imagine they've got some PTSD around that. So I don't know. And normally I wouldn't even think about it, but this has gone some pretty adult places in the last few episodes. So maybe it will. Maybe it will explore that.
Do you feel, and I've seen some criticism of this show from various YouTubers,
YouTubers criticizing? I don't believe it.
yeah, but I think some YouTubers have said, look, we're getting tired of just every episode is a new mission. Here, Sid's like, here's your new mission, go do this. Okay, good. Here's a new mission, go do this. Over and over and over again. I don't feel like I'm burned out on that concept yet, but I do see the point where it's like the setup of every episode appears to essentially be the same. Even the Crosshair one, here's a mission, Crosshair. We need you to go do a mission here. And I would like to start seeing these characters get away from Sid and we got to do missions and stuff like that and try to sort of make their way in the world and in the possible early parts of the rebellion that start to form and things of that nature, rather than just mission after mission after mission after mission.
I mean, it's kind of Star Wars A-Team. So
yeah,
that's it. But that I think the trend now, the expectation is that everything is serialized. But like, maybe this show just really isn't. Maybe it is sort of like an A-Team setup, and then there'll be a few sort of through lines, and especially as we get later into the season, kind of like how X-Files used to have like mostly monsters of the week, and then you'd get like a mythology episode or a mythology arc.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe we shall see. We
shall see in 2 weeks.
Yes. So thank you for listening to Nobody's Listening. Well, or one person out there who's listening. Thank you so much. We'll be back in a couple weeks. We'll be watching, discussing episodes 5 and 6 of The Bad Batch Season 2. And if any crazy Star Wars news breaks between now and then, we will definitely have thoughts on that. So thank you, everybody. Catch you later.
Bye, everybody.